I was just playing this really fun game where you had to jump over things with the red ball. And all of a sudden, this pop-up comes in the corner, and you click on it, and it's this porn site. And I'm like, whoa, that was weird. So I click on the X, and I keep playing my game. For the few seconds that I saw it, I couldn't get it out of my head for the rest of the day. You almost feel like a little craving, but at first, you think it's curiosity, not a craving. The addiction really all started in 3rd grade when I was 9 years old. I wanted to do what the older people were doing.
It was an older kid from down the street who had said a few things and look up a few things, and you decide to do that, click on those pop-up ads.
He was giving me these little tip words that will get you the right thing that you want. And I typed this up and I'm like, whoa, now this makes sense.
He would wake up in the middle of the night to view pornography. He would wake up before everybody first thing in the morning to view pornography.
I'd go into Google Images because, you know, it's basically the best place to find any picture that you need for anything. Type like 3 letters and there you go, you've got it. My name is Joseph and I'm 13 years old and I am a recovered porn addict.
Playboy, Penthouse and Hustler definitely laid the groundwork for today's porn industry. I mean, you had to basically groom the American culture into accepting pornography.
My name is Martin Daubney. I'm 45, I'm a journalist. I'm most known for being the editor of Loaded magazine. That was Britain's biggest lifestyle magazine for young men. Our demographic was typically sort of 15 to 45, so lads and dads. The magazine launched in 1994. Britain was going through a great period of social upheaval where hedonism was being celebrated. They wanted to, for the first time, be able to look at pictures of scantily clad women in their bikinis. Celebrities still had great writing and won loads of awards and shifted loads of units, but created this moral issue of were these magazines, was my magazine, switching a generation onto harder stuff. Right about in that spectrum, about 2002 in the UK, broadband internet became available to the masses for the first time. Suddenly, woof, and there was an explosion of internet pornography in the UK.
I was part of the first generation that grew up with unlimited access to internet porn. When I was 8 years old, I found a Playboy magazine. When I was 10, I started watching softcore porn on, late night cable TV, MTV, and BET booty shaking videos. And by age 12, that's when my family got high-speed internet. From that moment on, I started watching internet porn daily.
I was 8 years old, and my family and I were out for a walk just in our nice suburban neighborhood, and someone had strewn a pornographic magazine across the road, and my mom, horrified, swoops down, picks it up, throws it in a nearby trash can. By the time I was 14, suddenly the internet arrived.
I was in my basement one day, flipping through channels. My dad works for a cable company, so we had all of the channels. And I came across the channel in the very, very high numbers, and it was pornography.
I'd like to begin with a fact, a simple yet shocking fact. It is this: a flood tide of filth is engulfing our country in the form of newsstand obscenity.
In December 1953, the first issue of Playboy appeared on shelves across America. Content became more graphic as they competed with Penthouse to attract and retain readers. By 1972, 1/4 of all American college men were reading Playboy. Then edgier magazines like Screw and Hustler made their debut. By the 1990s, porn magazines were a global phenomenon.
It went from being under the counter, nudge, nudge, wink, wink, shame and secrecy, to being front page news. Loaded magazine was accused of being a porn magazine, as I was accused of being a pornographer. I had a phone number, I had an email address, we had a big office. People knew where to get me. Who was making porn? No one knew. I became a staunch defender of pornography, even though I wasn't a pornographer in my eyes. I went around the top universities in the UK, Oxford, Cambridge, Durham, taking part in huge debates with members of parliament, lawmakers, judges. I annihilated them. And then we started to realise that pornography was changing.
I was doing a presentation at a university in the United States, and after the presentation, a freshman in college came up. You know, we started talking about the nuances of the definitions, and he stopped me, and he's like, no, wait a second. Playboy's not porn, is it? And I was like, oh, okay. Because if I were to ask your parents what pornography is, their entire definition of pornography is the bunny. You know, so we have parents and teens using the same word to define two very different things.
People who viewed pornography in an intellectual sense were thinking of the pornography that they remembered, the pornography that I found under my dad's bed when I was 10. You know, kind of soft porn magazines with stacks of hay and gingham shirts and mustaches. And suddenly that had evaporated. And overnight, at the click of a mouse, we were getting this extreme body-punishing sex.
Pornography has historically fallen into two categories, softcore and hardcore. Softcore shows partial nudity and suggestive scenarios, while hardcore contains explicit sex and graphic penetration. But all that changed with the internet. What used to be classified as softcore pornography is now just part of everyday mainstream culture. Today's hardcore porn has hundreds of subgenres. There's feature porn, which typically has sets and acting and Hollywood-style camera work. Gonzo pornography, which used to be a small, fringe genre, has become particularly popular. Often shot with a point-of-view camera, it's violent and degrading, including choking, beating, and far worse.
Now, whereas his father came up with Playboy, the son is now catapulted into a world of sexual cruelty and violence. What happened is it became so hardcore so quickly that actually that's the only thing the porn industry produces. And what you found is softcore porn has migrated into pop culture. So now pop culture is really where you would have had Playboy or maybe Penthouse 15 years ago. Now, if you make pop culture more softcore, then what you have to do is continue to make pornography more hardcore as a way to distinguish the two.
10 years ago, a friend of mine attended the porn conference, the famous porn conference in Las Vegas. She saw a booth in the corner of the conference, and she asked someone who that was over there, and they said, oh, that's Max Hardcore, man. His stuff's crazy. He's kind of the edge of the internet. 10 years later, she went to the same conference, and he had the biggest booth right dead center. And not only that, but they were mimicking organizations all centered around gonzo pornography. This has become mainstream.
Things started out very vanilla, you know, when most guys start out, you know, what do you type, boob or butt or whatever. But things eventually escalated as I became desensitized to the content. I started searching for more extreme, shocking material. Things turned very abusive and misogynistic, things that made me feel anxiety and fear and stuff that would just confuse me. After I was done watching, I was like, why did I just watch that? Like, what is wrong with me?
It was always a lot of questioning, like, okay, what does this mean? I had to orient myself to the vocabulary of what they were talking about.
I was probably 15 or so, and I remember going outside to walk the dog and shaking, because I didn't know what to do with what I'd just seen.
So what is the typical porn scene in the 21st century? Within 3 clicks, here's what kids and teens will find online today.
There's one woman, usually 3 men. She's being pounded away orally, anally, vaginally. It goes on and on and on because these are Viagra-fortified penises. After maybe 20 minutes to half an hour, they pull out and the 3 of them at the same time ejaculate on her face. She is then exhausted, can barely move, and she has to say, yes, I love it.
My name is William Margold, and I do almost everything, or have done almost everything, in the adult entertainment business since 1971. I've been in front of the camera, behind the camera, under the camera, and over the camera. I was one of less than 5 men in LA, Southern California, as a male performer when it was illegal. I take credit for 500 hardcore penetration scenes, which means I had to get up, get in, get out, and get off on cue.
My real name is Rod Hopkins. My professional name is Brad Armstrong. I am a director and performer in adult videos. On my IMDb, I have about 300 films that I've acted in and 165 that I've directed. I've won Best Movie, Best Director, Best Screenplay, Best Art Direction, Best Blowjob Scene, Best Group Scene. I got a trophy cabinet full. I was a male stripper, going to college, working in the clubs at night and going to school during the day. Playgirl magazine brought me down to California to do a solo, and then from there, I met all the big photographers who shot for Penthouse and Hustler and started doing the couples thing. I sold my house, packed up my minivan, and made the journey. My first movie was 1989. The movie was Bowling Bimbos from Boston. Still remember it well, like it was yesterday.
The type of porn that Brad makes is considered high-end pornography. His house is full of props and costumes, and his films try to look and feel like Hollywood features. But this type of paid premium content is quickly disappearing as more violent and degrading porn fills the internet for free.
The adult entertainment industry started in theaters where you had to go to it, and now it comes to you. I don't have to take it out to dinner. I don't have to take it to a movie. I don't have to talk to it. I just get off and go on.
The porn industry put a lot of money into the research and development for the internet. A lot of what you see, pop-ups, pop-downs, the secure payment systems, those were developed by the porn industry. What happened is the internet drove porn and porn drove the internet. And let me just explain how you get into porn on the internet. You put porn into Google and you immediately come up with the first page, which is all the so-called free porn sites, the tube sites. This is your gateway into the porn world. You can watch hundreds of thousands of videos for free on the free porn sites.
We provide an international keyhole to the curious who go to their knees willingly to look through that keyhole until they're satiated. Then they get up and somebody else drops to their knees.
For me, a lot of it was the feeling of trying to find something and almost feeling accomplished when I could. And so I'd get an idea to try to find something specific, and I actually enjoyed finding it more than I actually enjoyed it.
At first, it starts with you're just naming the few words that you know. And then you keep going in your knowledge and it expands dictionaries to find related words and stuff. You're running back and forth, you're looking out windows, making sure that mom isn't home yet.
Remember, free porn sites are the equivalent of me handing out free cigarettes outside of middle school.
Sometimes it would just be wanna see, click here in the corner, and you're like, well, what are you talking about? You click on it, and then there's just this whole screen full of it.
Do you think this 11-year-old boy, for 1 minute, anticipates that level of violence? He's horror-struck at first, but he's aroused.
From the 4-hour school time that I would have, before lunch, I would say that I had been looking at it for like half of those 4 hours. Just going on it for the little few moments, or when my mom would go to help Gabby with her school, then I would have maybe like a 30-second period to just go and Google up what I need, and then I can go back to my school and, nothing ever happened.
My dreams for Joe at 9 was that he would be playing baseball, or that he would play with his friends and build forts. My son was too angry all the time to interact with a lot of kids. When he did, he often started fights. No kidding, his behavior changed. No kidding, he started beating up on his sister. He was mimicking what he was seeing.
The change was just the direct result of seeing people mistreat women. He just thought he had the right to do it too.
We know with trauma that at the point you are traumatized, if you do not deal with the trauma, then you keep going back to where you were traumatized. And where was that boy traumatized? At the point at which he looked at pornography. So it is an excellent way to lay the groundwork for potential porn addicts. Great business plan, devastatingly awful for the culture.
The most systematic analysis of sexual interests, sexual preferences before ours was way back in the 1940s and 50s. It's the Kinsey Report. There had been nothing done yet to use the biggest set of untapped sexual data ever created, which of course is the internet. It covers every person online, which when we did our research was about 2 billion people. We looked at millions of erotic videos, and we grabbed every possible kind of online sexual data we could. We looked at the million most popular websites in the world and then figured out which of those were erotic or sexual websites. We looked at billions of searches, just billions and billions of searches on multiple platforms, including more than 500,000 people's individual search histories over time. We looked at credit card purchases. We looked at downloads on erotic sites. We looked at webcam sites. We, for the first time, could actually see what people were clicking on and buying and downloading and looking at. Any kind of data you can think of, we went out, we grabbed it, and we analyzed it. And as a result, we got the first clear window, what really turns men and women on. The number one most important finding is the fact that domination and submission themes are universal among all of us. Men and women, gay and straight, every kind of erotica, romance novels, erotic stories, hardcore porn. It's the only sexual interest that binds all of us. In terms of what men are actually typing in to look for, the two most popular ones are anal sex and different variations of money shots.
The exterior money shot, the exterior ejaculation, is the essence of a male performer.
In pornography, traditionally the money shot was the ejaculation outside the body onto some part of the torso of the woman. And it was the key shot because that's when the film ended. Now the money shot is on the face and specifically in the eyes.
When I first did it, I said this is a vicarious revenge for every viewer who never got the cheerleader he lusted after.
The key to the money shot, the sexual pleasure involved in the money shot, is the power. Because typically in the money shot on the face, he's standing over her.
The woman's expression during the money shot serves as an emoticon. You know, she might be happy or sad or troubled or angry or upset or scared or whatever the case may be. Different men prefer different emotional states.
A pornographer was asked, what is this about the money shot? Why is it so popular? You know what he said? He said it's like a dog pissing on a lamppost. It's marking your territory.
The number one interest by a wide margin is youth. There's no place on earth where men are searching for something more than they're searching for youth. Men zero in on age. That's one of the number one factors they focus on. 13 is the single most searched for specific age of any age, which is obviously a bit shocking and even disturbing.
When we were illegal, there were 15, 16-year-old kids in the industry. We were breaking laws anyway, so nobody seemed to care. We weren't destroying them. Most of the ones who worked when they were underage went on to become legendary. The kids just happened to have gotten away with lying about their identification. We weren't violating their innocence because they certainly weren't innocent, because they were sometimes hotter doing their work, because they were paid and they became stars.
They might be 18 or not, we don't know, but let's just assume for the moment they are. But they're made to look very young, they've often got school uniform on, braces on their teeth, and they speak in a young way. So the important thing about this is whether they're 18 or not, the porn user is having the visceral experience of masturbating to a barely pubescent female. So now you have things like First Time with Daddy, Don't Worry She's My Stepdaughter, Daddy's Whore, Banging Babysitters.
We weren't child pornographers. We were in the pornography business, and some of the people fell through the cracks. But no one who did it that went on to become famous condemns this business for being child pornographers. That's the amusing thing about the world. It's all about the children, which the real world doesn't even give a damn about. Most people shouldn't even be parents.
My wife one time stumbled upon the history and realized there was some inappropriate stuff and wanted to talk to me about it because she thought it was me.
One day I was looking at the search history and I thought, I cannot believe this man. He's searching in French. Our older daughter says, Mom, that's not French. That's English spelled really, really bad. And it hit me like a ton of bricks. Everything that I had questioned or wondered hit me all in a moment, and I knew it was Joseph. I wanted to see what it was he was looking at because I wanted to know what degree am I dealing with here. So it went from kind of like Google Pictures to violent. Women are getting slapped, they're getting punched, they're being raped. He was on anywhere from 2 to 20 times a day, anywhere from 30 seconds to 5 minutes.
How many days a week? All 7 days. 7 days a week, definitely.
It's hard because you can't help but feel responsible for the fact that, I mean, you allowed this in the house. The internet is just sitting there ready.
I was just sitting in my room doing what I normally did, playing with my Lego and all this stuff. And then my mom walks into the room and I think, oh, she's coming to tuck me into bed. But she's got these tears streaming down her face. She's just crying and she's like, Joe, what did you do?
And I said, Joe, is there something you need to tell Mommy? And at that point, he instantly just started bawling and he said, I can't, it's too bad, it's too bad, it's too bad. All three of us, we just collapsed and were sobbing and sobbing.
I just felt awful. I just broke down and I was kneeling on the floor. I just felt terrible. And she's like, do you know how much you had done this? And she's scrolling on the history and it's just page after page after page of all this stuff. And I'm like, oh, seriously.
He just gave up everything, and from that moment on, we started to teach him how to fight against that.
For Joe, the other huge piece was humanizing the people. Joe, if that was your sister, would you be okay with her being on that screen? Joe, if that was me, are you okay if that's me doing that on that screen? Joe, are you okay if Dad does that to a whole bunch of women?
A bunch of my friends used to go out to Mexico and they invited me out with them to go party in Tijuana at a nightclub. They put me on the stage and at that point I realized that I was in a strip club and I was 15 or 16, I had braces. I was very, very young looking. I looked very young. And that night, people were applauding me, men and women, and they were telling me that I was beautiful and they were giving me money.
I was always shy, so being a teenager, I had anxiety, I had depression, had a lot of things going on in my head. And then I discovered websites of girls who were models. Each girl had, several photos. They put their stats, their height, eye color, whatever, all of that stuff, and what they were willing to do. And then the photographers would contact them directly to the website to book them. People started emailing me, mostly to do porn.
I had started stripping in college, and a couple producers came into the club one night and they said, you're beautiful and you are destined to be a star. That seed was planted in me that if I am naked, that I'm gonna be praised. And so I felt at that point in my life that I had found love. I filmed over 380 scenes by the time I was 25 years old. I was named one of Maxim's top 10 hottest porn stars. I won Starlet Awards and New Rookie Awards. I was on a lot of magazine covers. I hosted my own show on Playboy. Definitely built a huge name for myself.
My first shoot, met a photographer in a hotel with one light and a camera. And I didn't care about my life back then. It was very dangerous. I didn't have anybody with me. I didn't know this person. I didn't really know what to expect. I brought a bag of lingerie. It wasn't until he told me to take something off, and in my head, I realized what I was doing. The only way I could get through this is not to be me anymore.
Your alter ego is your strength. When I was at home and I was Brittany Ruiz, I was depressed, I was lonely, I was a drug addict. I didn't want to get out of bed. I hated myself, I hated my life, I hated everyone around me. I didn't know how to love. When I got onto set and I became Jenna Presley, it's like something just came over me and everything in my life was perfect. When I would be filmed in any kind of interview, I had a smile on my face and I acted like everything was great. I acted like I was making millions of dollars, which I was, but I didn't have anything to show for it, but nobody knew that. I made it seem like I had the world in my hands. I didn't want anybody to know how broken I was.
The porn industry in general doesn't have a lot of oversight. With thousands of scenes being shot every day and few inspectors to monitor safety, it's not surprising that STDs and other health and safety issues are an ongoing concern.
Does anybody get hurt making X-rated films? Physical violence against them? Probably by accident.
The violence and degrading thing is a tricky subject because some people like to get degraded. It's their turn on. But so much of adult video isn't that.
Have I ever hit a woman on camera that was scripted? Yes. I was playing the part of a role. I've spanked women grotesquely because it was part of the script. If you relax, nothing hurts. You're going to use the word victim, aren't you? They're not. They're performers performing an act for somebody else's pleasure.
Some girls who are big into fetish, they're going to get degraded or have that bondage experience because that's what they've chosen to do. But for the most part, those are the girls who really love that. That's what they get off on. That's what excites them.
I think that a lot of women enjoy a certain danger level in the sexual act. I was taught and played and performed what is known as the death game with a woman much older than me who liked to be choked. It was magnificent. There is no premeditated violence against women. If somebody gets hurt on a set, it's invariably accidental. I have hurt some people anally, wasn't intentional, and I slipped and I heard the tear. She didn't seem to mind. If they say stop, you stop. If they want to do it because they know it's going to go on for the greater good, which is an audience beyond their wildest dreams, keep doing it. They get paid.
The girl is the power player here. They get paid more than the guys. You know, the average rate for a girl is $1,000 a day. Very few industries do you make $1,000 a day with little or no skill set.
I was in the industry for 6.5 years. It progressed slowly from being a website. I made money doing scenes in movies, doing fetish stuff. I made money selling merchandise on my website. I made money talking on the phone with people, $10 a minute. It got to the point where I made $15,000 a month.
What exactly is exploitation? You take advantage of somebody? How are you taking advantage of them? And you're meaning women, of course, by paying them 3 times more than the men get. What exactly is exploiting them by paying them more?
Nobody would argue that McDonald's is in the business of hamburgers to improve our culinary tastes. Everyone knows they're in there to make money, and they do it as cheaply as possible to maximize profit. Why is the porn industry, the only industry that nobody seems to understand, is out there to maximize profits?
I shot for a lot of porn companies, and when you shoot for porn companies, you sign a contract that states that they have legal rights to the scene. They can duplicate it as much as they want in films, internet. They can use the pictures as many times as they want. So they own those. I signed my rights away the day that I filmed the scene. They make money off of me forever, but I don't get a penny in return. I got my $1,000, my $1,500, my $800, whatever it was at that time in my career, and that was it.
I signed the contract with this big company to run my website. Stuff is still out there. They won't take it down. So they're still making money off of me. I don't even make money off of it. I told them I don't want the money. I just want you to take my site down. I know it's a business, but at the time I thought these people were my friends.
I have warned anybody and everybody who's come into this business, once you do this, it is forever. I happen to like the immortality factor. I like what I've left. I've left my legacy. I've left that image on the wall. I've left these things behind me on both the outside shelves. If you want to see what I've done, pop in a tape.
A lot of people that make bad decisions don't do it on camera. Pornography is done on camera for the world to see forever. Forever.
By the time I left the industry, I think the internet was saturated with photos of me. Literally, I only had to Google my first name for hundreds of pictures to come up.
It's given me my life. It's made me immortal. It's given me an opportunity to help people, which is my natural instinct.
I would say really think about what you're doing, because you're gonna make decisions in a temporary place of brokenness that are gonna last a lifetime.
I didn't care about my life. I thought I wouldn't live to be the age that I am. I never dreamed I would live that long. I thought I would commit suicide before then, or that my boyfriend would kill me.
I thought, I'm never gonna be able to get out of this industry. Nobody's ever gonna love me. Who's ever gonna hire me? I've been naked on camera for 7 years.
My photos and my videos, everything I signed a contract for is out there forever. If I decide to have kids, they'll see it. There's no way around it. My family can see it, my friends can see it, my coworkers can see it. It can just haunt you for the rest of your life.
That's not empowering at all.
Not only has the internet created lifelong consequences for those who leave the porn industry, but as Martin discovered, internet porn is having huge ramifications in the lives of kids and teens today.
At this time, I was really analysing my position in this matrix, having become a father. So I wrote about this in the Daily Mail, a newspaper, did my magazine switch a generation onto porn? And what has porn become? Within 4 days, we had a TV show commissioned. I wanted to ask all these guys, at the very sort of sharp end of porn addiction and sexual kind of depravity in the UK, were men's magazines a part of the matrix? And I kind of went like this. I was looking through my fingers, and I didn't really want to know the answer, but I had to know the answer. Every time we sat down with the readers, we said, what would you like? And they said, more birds, less words. As a journalist, that was like really depressing, because we got into it because we wanted to write, but we found out they didn't read this anymore. They just looked at it. It was becoming a visual entity. It was becoming a vehicle to sell girls.
They're catering to a market, but they're also building a market, where they're trying to show these guys what the newest, latest fetish is, whether it's choking or spitting or spanking. It's a completely unnecessary product, but everybody needs it, So thank God for horny guys.
You can escalate into something new by just clicking and clicking and clicking. I rode my bike home from school, and I would have 2 or 3 hours until my dad got home from work. So it was mainly timing for me. I was good at scheduling when I watched porn, and was pretty good at keeping it secret, except, my parents were very interested in why I was taking really long showers. I remember my mom said she was always wondering, why in the world are you taking 30-minute showers? In reality, it was because I had a laptop in the bathroom and I was watching porn. I wasn't even in the shower.
It was almost like when parents talk about their children growing, they blink and all of a sudden they're grown up. I almost looked back and I realized, wow, I'm addicted to this.
For me, it got to the point where almost every single night I looked at myself in the mirror and I said, I hate you. Because I had begun to accept that people were commodities, that they could be consumed, and if nobody else was worth anything, then how do I have any worth myself?
The most controversial thing of all, we wanted to test the thesis, could porn have the capabilities of being addictive? We recruited 23 guys, young guys, who felt that their porn use was getting out of control, where they were masturbating 28 times a day and they're getting fired from their jobs and they were unable to have productive sex lives, they're having erectile dysfunction. A guy got caught using porn in his place of work. He worked in a hospital, so he lost his job. Another guy left his laptop open at night time and went to bed after using porn. In the morning, his daughter opened the laptop, and not only was the porn there, but the girl in the porn looked like her.
In a society that is drug-infested, violence-racked, and polluted by chemical greed, no one has ever died from an overdose of pornography. We are the perfect whipping boy for all of society's ills. But we're simply just an entertainment factor, and if you don't want it, turn it off.
Every day we receive emails from youth that are so desperate to find hope and support. We had one youth email us not long ago saying, please help. The stuff I used to watch no longer works. I now need violent fantasies. Please, I don't want to be this way. Many of these youth We're talking 12, 13-year-olds that have emailed us have indicated that they've had suicidal thoughts as a result of their pornography consumption, that they're ready to kind of call it quits and be done because they don't feel like they can quit.
There's a scientific reason why kids and teens have a heightened risk for porn addiction. Sexual pleasure creates a 200% dopamine spike in the brain's reward center, the nucleus accumbens. That's about the same level as morphine. But the prefrontal cortex, that forward-thinking part of the brain that recognizes consequences and acts as a firewall, doesn't fully develop until the early to mid-20s. When kids watch porn, it's as if they're getting a morphine hit to their brain, potentially a decade before they're able to protect themselves.
Cambridge University put our 23 porn users into an IMRI scanner and showed them porn and scanned their brains in real time. It was the first time this had ever been done in the world. What we found was revelatory. Their brains were performing in precisely the same way as addictive brains were. So these guys' brains were behaving in the same way when they were being shown porn as a heroin addict when he was shown heroin stimulus.
I think what cures a person of being, if they are porn addicted, they get bored and they move on to something else.
Guys who grew up with internet porn have reached a place where they have been conditioned so deeply by internet porn and the way it stimulates the brain that they have created pathways in the brain that only internet porn can fulfill. So when they're with a real partner, their brain doesn't fire up the same way and they can't feel any arousal. This is called porn-induced erectile dysfunction, and it happened to me. When I was 23, I reached a point where I could only become aroused using pixels on a screen, and I felt nothing when I was with a real-life partner.
This is not what he signed on for. What he signed on for was maybe a few years of jerking off to porn till he started dating.
I literally became dependent on porn to function.
Not only does porn addiction affect guys personally, but it's spilling over into their sexual relationships with others as well.
Boys and men are playing out porn sex all over the bodies of young women. The food industry shapes the way we eat. The fashion industry shapes the way we dress. How could the sex industry not shape the way we have sex? It would be the only industry in the world that had no cultural impact.
Some of the things I escalated into were stuff that used to be repulsive to me. But, you know, unknowingly, because I was ignorant of what was happening to me, I started wanting the things that used to disgust me with my partners, because porn had conditioned me to need that.
A young boy was just arrested on his very first date, and he was strangling a girl in the car. And when the police officer was asking him, what on earth were you thinking? He said, well, isn't that what they want? He had been consuming pornography regularly since he was 7 or 8 years old, and his arousal and sexual template had been morphed, changed, quite literally rewired to the point where that was sexuality to him.
I often ask in my lectures to the women, what are the 3 things the guys want from you? First thing they want to come on their face, they want threesomes, and they want anal sex.
If I can't satisfy your needs right now, then suddenly I'm less of a person. You are a commodity, and if you can't satisfy the demand, then you're worthless. You'll be shoved aside.
We hear the stories of women telling their husbands, you know what? I'd rather you watched porn. I'd rather you use prostitutes because I don't actually want to do the things that you want me to do. Because we're now thinking of what we see in pornography as healthy sexuality.
Porn sex and married sex, there's a huge difference.
No intimacy. Intimacy is the operative term. You're not allowed really to be intimate having sex on camera. To have sex is like shaking hands in this business. It isn't personal.
And there has been a mass abdication of responsibility on the part of adults. We have thrown our children into the porn culture, and we've said sink or swim.
I had a website, and on my website it says, you must be 18 years old or older to enter. But anybody could click enter. A 10-year-old could click enter.
Do your kids have internet? Well, sure they do. All the time? Well, yeah. They have their laptop in the room? Yeah. All night? And you watch the wheels turn and they suddenly realize they've never bothered checking. They've never wondered what their kid's up to at 2 in the morning if they're online. And so by doing that, we suddenly say, look, it's time you take back your house. It's time you start to monitor your kids.
His entire pornography addiction happened in the kitchen and living room of my home while the family was in the room.
What does this word protect? What do you think it's really going to do for them? Do you honestly think it's going to sear their minds with images that they can't understand until they're told they're dirty in the first place? Sex is a joke. It's taken way too seriously. It's taken deathly seriously. And I think that we're the ones who are frightened of it, not the kids.
Put porn into Google, watch a woman being choked, watch her being ejaculated on by three men till she can't open her eyes, and then tell me that in any way is a way to sustain the next generation.
I don't believe they seek it out until they're told they shouldn't. I don't think kids are as bright as you give them credit for.
Just follow the breadcrumbs of an 11-year-old boy. Don't use your credit card. See what they see. Watch it. Watch the violence, the debasement, the humiliation, the degradation.
Go look. Go take a look at the search history, what's going on online with your son or daughter. If you're right, then you're not afraid to go look. But if you find what I think you will, what do we do then?
The truth is, almost every kid sees porn before the age of 18. Until now, people had to show their identification at stores before they could buy porn. So what does meaningful age verification look like on the internet? We could follow the lead of the gambling industry, which requires a credit card. We could use a third-party system that verifies age while keeping identity private and issues an access key to use on porn sites. Whatever the approach, it has to be part of a much larger effort that equips parents to help their kids.
I remember at one specific occasion we were at a conference and we were sharing a room, and I shared this out of nowhere, and 3 out of the 4 girls that I was sharing a room with also shared that they struggle with pornography too. We were struggling alone.
Eventually I got to the point where I said, enough is enough. I'll do whatever it takes to get free. I know I had to just stop myself from stumbling across it by accident. So I couldn't figure out how to lock down my iPhone, so I sold it. And I bought the worst BlackBerry ever. The second thing was to begin the process of renewing my mind. I knew that porn had changed the way that I thought, and I needed to fix that. So I enrolled in a specific online course that put me in touch with an online mentor and went step by step, thinking through some of the ways my brain was working.
While I was searching for answers to my problem, I found forums with thousands of guys with similar stories. And I stumbled across a post that said, see if you can masturbate without porn. If you can't, it's likely you have porn-induced erectile dysfunction. So I tried it, and to my surprise, I could not become aroused at all. I thought I was gonna recover, in like 6 to 8 weeks. At that point in time, we didn't know that younger guys that grew up with internet porn would need longer to recover.
The relief came for about a week, 2 weeks, and then I was right back into it again, more aggressive than I was before.
It took me 9 months to regain sexual function without watching porn.
People come in and just, hey, I can't pick up your Wi-Fi, and there's that sense that we're doing something weird, but they don't understand the struggle of just leaving everything open for everybody to have has caused damage here. The rule in our house is everybody sits with somebody when they're online. We have a machine that limits the hours we can set it, open it up and close it at will. So it's really nice. We can regulate. You need it open, you want to do some schoolwork, we pop it on, you're on. At midnight, it's not on. I don't care where you are in the house, you don't have access.
I had flip-flopped back and forth until she took the internet away, she took the computer away, and then finally I was just free.
I left Loaded, I guess, because, I became a father. First and foremost, there was a big disconnect, between peddling pictures of girls in bikinis and then going home and bottle feeding a newborn. People had always said to me, would you be happy for your daughter to appear in your magazine? I'd say, well, no, I haven't got a daughter. And then when I had a daughter, I was like, well, definitely not. And then it became kind of moral meltdown. The question I most dread getting, and I've had it a couple of times, is, do you feel guilty about what you did? Do you feel responsible, for switching these kids onto porn? Were you part of the problem? And I say, you know, maybe I was. You know, maybe I was a part of the problem. But now I'm trying to be a part of the solution. There are millions of parents in the world who are terrified about how to talk to their daughters about porn. Because let's face it, you know, girls are on the receiving end.
In today's world, it's not a matter of if your child will come across something that is porn or like porn, but it's when. And you have to be prepared for that moment, and what will you say?
You watch a movie where there's a lot of violence in it. And so if you're 9, 10 years old and you go outside and you start punching your neighbor friend because you're just mimicking the movie, somebody has to tell you, hey, we don't treat people like that. He's hurting for real, not like the movie.
Will you just freak out and be horrified and crushed that your child saw it? Or will you recognize the opportunity to address the issue and deal with it before they're pulled any further in?
When my dad was tutoring me when I was 7, my boy is now 7. You know, we lived in a tough area, a coal mining area, and you know, domestic violence was commonplace then. And you would see people on the streets with black eyes, and my dad would make me look. He would say, look, son, we don't do it like that. That's the moral duty that fathers have, the responsibility to say, we don't hurt, we don't degrade, we don't punish.
The way one guy described it is the best advice I can give parents, which was that every time he heard a word on the playground that he didn't know what it meant, he knew that he could run home and ask his dad, and his dad would completely explain what it was. If he had Googled any of those words, he would have encountered pornography at an age where he was completely unprepared to handle it. The number one thing that parents can do is be open and talk with their kids.
When I was a kid, my parents sat me down for the classic birds and the bees conversation. They had like a 6-series VHS tape, you know, experience where they sat down and one at a time we just went through, and I could not have been more petrified and horrified about what was going on. And that was the most awkward experience. But it was kind of this one-time thing. It was this like idea that like my kid's gonna watch these 6 tapes, or we're gonna have this one dialogue and one discussion, and they're gonna know everything they need to know. I remember one parent telling me, as soon as my kid turns 16 years old, I'll tell him everything he needs to know. And I'm like, oh, good heavens. By the time they're 10, they know it all.
There are an awful lot of people who are looking for the mistake of love. The most important word in your life should be recognition. If you go through life unrecognized, you haven't lived a life. My second daughter came and watched me at a convention, the people coming up, saying hello to me, talking to me, and after an hour or two, she came over and said, now I know why they love you, because you love them. I care about them, and I want to protect them, and I would die to protect this industry because it's given me my life.
There is a huge difference between fame and love. When I was in that industry, I thought that the fame that I was getting was love. Nobody truly loves you because they're praising you for all the wrong reasons.
Brittany eventually got out of the industry and met a man who saw her for more than just her body. He knows her past, but he's never Googled her name. This is the kind of role model that young men need.
The best moment of my life was the day that I asked my now wife out, and she asked me a bunch of questions first before she agreed to actually start a relationship. And one of them was, are you addicted to pornography? I was able to say, no, I am no longer addicted to pornography. And years later, we're married, have kids, life is fantastic. As much as it can seem so dark and so hopeless in your own struggle, there can be a moment where you can actually say, my life is completely different.
Many people ask us, am I stuck? You know, I've rewired my brain and I'm done, right? To them, we have to kind of hurry and say, no. Your brain is so capable of change.
And we've seen guys take over a year to recover, but from everyone that we've heard back from that continued to stay away from porn, they all recovered and they all reported back saying that life is so much better away from porn.
For women who are struggling, it's you're not alone. If you can find the boldness in yourself to share with someone that you trust and that is willing to be accountable, then you'd probably be surprised that there are people around you who are willing to do that, as well as people around you who are also struggling.
Today, I feel more joyful than ever. I have more drive for life, more zest for things that I used to enjoy, but I lost passion for. And most importantly, I can feel emotions again, and I can feel connection with other people. We all, as humans, desire intimacy and connection, and you will never find that if you chase pixels on a screen. No amount of porn can ever love you back.
If you're letting someone under 18 use your computer, it's on you.
If my son in my house, with all of the safeguards that I had, was able to view it as frequently as he had, I'm telling you, it's not your fault. The system is broken and something needs to change.
Where are the adults? Where are the pediatricians? Where are the clinical psychologists? Where are all the people who have a vested interest in the well-being of the next generation? How did they let this happen?
We no longer have the luxury as a society, and definitely as parents, to hide from this any longer. We no longer have the luxury to kind of put our heads in the sand and pretend it doesn't exist. We must engage, because if we don't educate the youth today, the industry will, and we're not going to like what they teach them.
Do I feel ready to go back on the internet alone? I feel that I could do it, but I want to stay safe rather than sorry. Sometimes the temptation comes, then you have to say, no, I'm not going into this, I'm done with that. I feel that now that I'm recovering, my goal is trying to stop other people from getting into this. I was in this, I know how you feel. Tell someone you know, maybe not your parents at first, but just tell like a friend or, a cousin, someone that you really trust. The best thing that you can do is tell someone.